Here we go. You are listening to the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast, episode 298, where all we'll talk about is Apple, pretty much.
Welcome to Season 7, Episode 298 of the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast. Today is June the 11th, 2017. I'm Matthew Dean Furlo, and voting to officially become a state is my brother, James Furlo.
Okay, I clearly missed some sort of important...
Yeah.
Who's becoming a state?
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yet again. This isn't news.
What? I mean... You know, how many times in a row do you have to vote to become a state before it becomes news, huh?
Is it even going to be close again?
No, it's like super overwhelming. It's like, but that's because it's like 90% voted for it, but that's because the anti crowd staged a protest. So it's like 90% voted to join America, but they only had like a 22% turnout. Which,
does that matter?
Kinda, because they don't actually. They have to vote. Hey, yeah, we want to become a state, and then Congress has to vote. Yes, we want them to become a state. And
so, if a lot of people if the votes is super low turnout, Congress may say not good enough.
Exactly. And there's some political theorizing that it would upset the current balance of power in the Senate and
whatever.
And and honestly, the biggest problem is that it's 2 extra senatorial votes and it's 2 extra, and it's a redivision of the congressional votes. And
that's right.
The reason why that ends up being significant is because the political theorizing is that they've gone really far out of the way to make sure that it only seems like there's a choice between the Democrats and Republicans, and they want to make sure that those safe votes stay safe. And yeah, I think it's
interesting.
That's what I've been reading. I don't know.
I personally finally got around to watching Wonder Woman, and my vote is everybody should go see it. It's good.
That's a pretty good vote. Yeah. You got to.
Speaking of safe votes,
what did you? Yeah, right. What did your significant other?
She liked it. Thought it was good. She actually wanted our daughter, who's 2, to go see it, but also is like it's a little violent. Like, yeah, but it's that strong woman figure. It's really good.
Okay, so, give it time. It's a good one.
That's what I said. I went. She can watch it later. It feels like it's going to be a timeless classic, so we're all good.
Exactly. I just pulled up my favorite movie place to go, Box Office Mojo, and The Mummy came out this weekend.
That's right.
And it came in second place to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman raked in 57 mils, whereas The Mummy only got about 32 mils.
Ooh, hope they didn't spend that much on production.
So worldwide, The Mummy's at 174 already, and their production budget was about 125. So except theoretically, that's just production, and they normally about double the budget for advertising and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's probably closer to 250 for them to really break even and make money. So not good. It'll probably get there, which means that the rest of this universe, as it were might still expanding. But yeah, whereas Wonder Woman worldwide has already cleared 435 million with a production budget of 150. So they were aiming to get over the 250 mark before they started making money, and they're well into that. So
doing good.
You'll probably get another Wonderful Woman at some point with Gal Gadot or Gadot. Or Godot, nobody knows. Nobody
really knows.
But yeah.
It's actually kind of funny watching her on like the late night stuff, because people are like, who are you? we don't know you. Like, tell us about yourself.
That's funny.
Like, the number one talking point was like, so you were in the Israeli army at one time, huh? Like,
yeah,
that's what everybody knows.
That's true. They're blowing up. There was a picture on Reddit today of her as she was about to walk in to join to sign up with her sack, as it were, her little bag. Gonna go do it. Join the military. But yeah, no, it's interesting stuff. It's good, man. It's good. Yeah. The only other thing worth talking about probably is that freaking the Warriors.
They just want to bring it home.
Oh my god!
They can enjoy the championship on the home court.
That's, I've been saying since the beginning, as long as they do it in 7, I'm going to be A-okay. Of course, if they do it in 6, it won't be like horrible for me, because if they do it in 7, that will be the game 7, and I will likely be on an airplane for most of it. That will make life more difficult for me. But that's cool. That's cool. But yeah, it's good times, man. Got anything else going on you want to talk about, or do we just want to get into this?
No, let's get into it.
Big week. All right, man. This week, like every week, we're going to be talking about Apple and the continuing corporate opera. By that we mean the soap opera of Apple and other corporations, dealings back and forth. Yeah. The people working for Apple, the marketing campaigns of Apple, and of course the technology that Apple is developing. But before we get into the heart of the show, Jim's got a short disclosure he wants to throw our way.
I founded and work for HPI, but I do not represent HPI or any of their opinions. I also own part of Twitter, Etsy, and Lending Club.
Nice. If you want to follow us just throughout the week, this will be a good week. I have a feeling that there will be some Furlo Bros pictures taken and posted on the internet.
At least one.
At least one. And you can follow me at Matthew D. Furlo is my Twitter. Next Spoken 4 is my Insta account.
Yeah, actually, if you go to jamesfurlo.com, this week I did a post on losing weight and compared science to my personal statistics.
How'd you do?
Turns out science is right.
Yes. I like it when science does that.
It's amazing. But I was able to quantify some of the stuff where they're like, what's more important? What you eat or how much you exercise? And then in terms of what you eat, is it really just count your calories, or does what you eat matter? And I was able to... The
answer is yes to both of those questions.
I was able to look at the statistics to actually quantify it. So, for example, deciding watch what you eat versus watching how much you exercise, if that makes sense. Eating is twice as important, twice as big of a factor compared to exercise. As
the saying I always like to throw around goes, you can't outrun a bad diet.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is, so usually my cheat days are Saturday.
Yes.
And so before we went to the movies, we went to Jack in a Box, and that morning I went on an 11-mile run,
nice.
Burned 1,100 calories. And that afternoon I had I don't know what they call it, a Happy Jack cheeseburger. I don't normally go there, but it was near the movie theater. And I had French fries, which was 10,050 calories.
Yep.
And I went, wow, in this one meal, and I didn't get a soda, like that was my 11 miles. Awesome.
Yep.
My daily budget, by the way, is like 1,500 calories. So it was my cheat day, so I didn't care, but yeah, pretty crazy. And then also when it comes to your food, what really matters is your carbs. However, so if you're going to eat less and cut your food, cut your carbs first. Don't cut the other stuff, which inherently is going to mean you're going to cut your sugars and things like that. I thought cutting dairy was important. Turns out not so much.
Yeah, it's it's frustrating because in one part it's like not complicated at all, and in another part it's incredibly complicated because you can't and what happens is there's just so much dogma that people latch onto about health, and they really understand the underpinnings of it. So to say a calorie is a calorie, it's a unit of measure. That's like saying a foot is a foot or an inch is an inch. Like every inch is the same inch. Well, yes, it's exactly. But an inch of a rope is different than an inch of stainless steel. Like you the types of, as you like, the number of calories you eat in an incredibly deterministic way will determine how much you weigh, period. That's how the calculations work. How hungry you are, how easy it is to maintain the diet, how well you feel, how much energy you have is determined by the quality of the food that you eat.
Well, and whether or not you're still going to be storing fat or muscle or other stuff as well. But yeah, totally with you. Anyways,
yeah, that's not the point, James. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Apple.
Now that I told you all about the article, that you don't have to go to jamesfurlo.com.
Yeah.
But you still should go to follow me on Twitter under that same name and other places. And like Matthew said, I'll be posting some pics of our Tough Mudder, which, by the way, we will be broadcasting probably from Canada next Sunday together.
Tough Mudders. Yeah, that'll be a new country for me to broadcast from.
Me too. To visit just ever.
Yeah, me too. This is the furthest, or this is the first time I'm going there on purpose.
I guess that's right. I guess technically I was in Canada once.
Yep.
I landed on a military base for
you and me both.
24 hours.
I mean, not both, because I had different. Mine wasn't quite the same. I was supposed to go to I was supposed to jump through Montreal. I don't count that as going to a country. If you don't leave the port, you're not in the country. But
I did not. I didn't even leave the military base.
Was
I on a port? Is the military base considered a port? How does that work?
Was it an American military base?
No.
Okay. Well, then you were there. That's close enough. But they actually sent me from Montreal to Toronto, where I had to go halfway across Toronto for the hotel, and then back in the morning. And oh man, it was an adventure, but it's a long story, so it's a good story, but it's not appropriate, James, because what you should do, what we're talking about this week, is tech. And if you want to get more about the tech and not my travel stories, go to furlorose.com. All the articles that we talk about, links, downloads, videos, audios, software packages, frameworks, all those sorts of things you can get just by clicking on our links. Go there, check it out, furlorose.com. I didn't directly link to any frameworks, but you have to sort of, you have to click on links through links to get there. But yeah, before we get into Apple, though, this is a great article that I wanted to share with you. Somebody on Reddit. So this is kind of related. Apple, one of the things that they changed was the volume control. So when you up and down the volume thing, instead of putting up a giant obnoxious blocks in the middle of the screen that blocks everything going on underneath it.
Oh yeah, I hate that.
They've changed it finally to be off into the side. And so Redditors, so somebody asked, how would you, who can make the best volume slider? And they posted to Programmer Humor, and the results have been pouring in. So the very first one is like, it's just this, normally on a slider, it's tall and you go up and down the slider to do volume. But what they did was they do it left to right. So it's tall and thin, and so you have very little granularity there. It's just a really poor design. Then somebody did one where they attached the light sensor on their Mac to the volume, so the brighter the room is, the louder the music gets. One made a random dice roller out of it, so you're given I think it's like a dozen dice, and you hit a random roll, and it'll add up all the dice together to give you the volume. And you can hold certain dice if you want to narrow in on a particular volume. It's pretty funny.
I like it.
They got one there. This was actually kind of cool. It just doesn't seem like it would work really well, but it's please make a noise as loud as you want the volume to be. And so you'd like start it listening. You'd make a noise and then hit save.
It's actually not the worst idea ever.
Yeah, it's it's not the worst idea, but somebody made one that was attached to a server so that everybody who was using this volume controller, it gave every user a unique volume. So basically what happened is if let's say you wanted to set it to 56%, but somebody else was already at 56%, it wouldn't let you set it to 56%. So only one user could have it at any particular volume level, which is great. And then one of the more the fun ones is you get the volume, like the little volume image, the speaker with the sound coming out of it, and then there's a long slider, and when you hold down on the volume thing, it starts to tilt and build up color, and then it fires a little cannonball, and where the cannonball lands, that's your volume. So it's sort of like playing Angry Birds, where depending on how much power you give it and what angle you go for, it'll set the volume to that level. Which I was just like, that's awesome. That's hilarious. Very, very funny. And if you go to the actual subreddit, you can get even more, but very clever. You programming nerds.
Nerds. I like it. All right, you ready to get into this?
Let's rock and roll, man.
All right, so Apple held their Worldwide Developers Conference this last week, and then they had a keynote where they launched a bevy of things. Specifically, they said they had 6 things. I think it was like 5 things, but whatever. So I think it makes sense just to kind of roll through them and talk about them.
Sure.
How awesome they are. Maybe before then, do you want to give a quick, here's how I thought it went? I don't know if are we a little early for just overall?
No.
I'll let me know how biased you are in this whole conversation. Then we can watch it change as we go.
I was going to say, I will say this. My first reaction after everything was sort of irritation and disappointment.
Okay.
As time has gone on, I've moved into, they've a lot of the software stuff they've done, I actually am pretty impressed by and pretty excited about. The hardware stuff, the hardware stuff felt tepid, but that's what people are excited about. So yeah, that's kind of what about you?
There were some things I did not expect to see and was happy to see. There were things I wanted to see and did not see. For example, the iPad multitasking.
Oh yes.
I wasn't looking for that, but now that I've seen it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I'm really hoping I'm pretty sure my iPad will get to take advantage of that. And I thought that was neat. I was really hoping to see more of a Siri-esque API thing. And I guess we'll talk more about that in a bit, but they didn't really launch that. And I think the HomePod was a good, here's how we think about it. We own it. You don't. Sorry.
Yeah.
And they kind of quasi don't really make up for it in other ways, but yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things I really like about it, and they made a point about this too, and even in a later interview, Cook made this point to say, this is what we're doing this year. And I appreciate that, where they're like, the plan is to launch everything this year that we showed off, whether even software or hardware. Whereas that was one of the comments we had made about Google specifically, and even some to extent Facebook's. It's like they're painting visions for where they want to go, but in terms of actual releases, kind of light on that part. So
I would say from that perspective, that you do really have to. I think that's why I come at it from the perspective that I came to. And I mean, before we get into too many details, it's kind of weird to go big overview, but it's like their software is not as impressive as some of the things that Google announced, except you can download and use everything that Apple put out right away. So from that perspective, a lot of it is really impressive. Their hardware, I think they're just the things that have been really frustrating. That big gap where they didn't upgrade enough hardware quick enough. It revealed some deep frustrations, and I don't think that this new hardware did anything to prove that they've learned any lessons. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. I think it'll be really. I think what they did was okay from a hardware perspective, but it's everything but the HomePod. The HomePod, I think, kind of fits into a different category because
Well, let's start with that because actually on my list that happens to be the first one. So
that's what they finished with. So we'll start with it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, so HomePod 7 inches.
Yeah. You getting one?
Of music. Yeah, no, probably not. Well, it's December, you know? I mean, like, so much happens.
It's true.
That time. I don't know. I want a speaker for my bedroom. I definitely want that. And I don't know. I don't have a subscription to Apple Music either. And I feel like that's kind of a non-starter.
Yeah.
But it's definitely. I don't, you know, knowing me, I'll listen to it and go, oh man, that sounds super cool. I like the fact that it's already HomeKit capable, but I have it on my watch, which is super nice. And I think Jessie would use a lot more of the HomeKit stuff if she knew she could just say it out loud because she likes the Echo. I am, by the way, getting. I just looked it up, and Chamberlain is like, they're gonna ship their HomeKit capable garage door later this month.
Nice.
So I'm like, oh man, I'm in.
It's ready. It's happening.
Yeah, and so as that kind of stuff, as that stuff keeps happening, it may make sense to have just kind of this ever-present thing throughout the house. But it's also not a strong point, right? And that's where it gets a little weird. But I hear it sounds cool.
Yeah. You know, I this is kind of more my take on the HomePod is, well, it goes back to my take on the Google Home, which when I did my review, if you remember back, one of the things I talked about, thank you. One of the things that I talk about is that I didn't really like, it's not in and of itself super impressive. It's really cool to have something that you can just talk to and I really liked that it was something that anybody, it's like it's like a light switch for your lights or a heater controller for your heater. It's an everything controller. It's a unified remote that anybody can use, which I think is something that's missing from, I've got my watch so I can control the lights, but guests can't, which, I think is missing some. I think that's
so my wife and I, we're not going to do this for like 5 years, but we're talking about building. It's called an accessory dwelling unit, essentially a studio in our backyard.
Okay.
And the idea would be like when missionaries or family come and visit, it'd be a one, like, it'd have like a little kitchenette, bathroom, bedroom, essentially.
Yeah.
And even the kitchenette may be quasi optional. But one of the things I was thinking about was like, dude, actually be pretty sweet, obviously, to have it totally be smart home and like just tell them there's no light switches. You just tell it, turn on the lights and it'll do it.
Yeah. I think
that'd be sweet.
I think the thing, and which I think would be great. My problem is that I feel like the HomePod really falls short on that for the price point only. Like I would like to have one.
You've got to buy it for music. You're not buying it for.
And what gets me is that it's like, I feel like that's a real. Now that I'm like actually using HomeKit and stuff, I feel like that's the thing that's missing. That's the piece of it, and it's just such a.
Wait, it has HomeKit, or do you mean like HomeKit's not strong enough?
I think that HomeKit. Well, no. The missing piece of the puzzle is the universal remote that guests can use without signing up for your HomeKit. I've got a watch. I've got a phone. All my roommates do. But what if one of my roommates was an Android fanboy? Or what if we had a guest over who wasn't like signed into our account? How do they turn on the lights? And I
don't understand. They couldn't they? Or
guests?
Yeah.
With HomePod. Well, what if I have but what that means is that what if you're in, like, let's say you're in the bedroom and you want to turn on the bedroom lights as opposed to, and like, where do you put a HomePod? The nice part about Amazon,
one in each room, dude. That's what they want.
I know. The nice part about the Echo Dots is that they're so cheap, you can put them everywhere, and they fill out that it fills a gap, and it's something that Apple, I think, could get away with a more.
Well, I know for one of our listeners, he has a Google Home in every room.
Well, but even okay, that's totally fine. But my point is,
and he actually loves the fact that it's user specific. So like, so they can name the rooms and their lights and stuff, whatever they want it to be. And Google Home's smart enough to know, oh, you're the person talking and you've named it this.
Well, and cool, I mean, I guess you're making my case here because it's, right now you can buy them for $109 for each Google Home. Yeah, that's a really expensive light switch, but a $350 light switch is even more unpalatable. So my point is that it's like, I don't care how good of a speaker it is, or I should say the fact that it's a really good speaker is good, but there's still a missing piece of the HomeKit ecosystem that Apple isn't allowing either third parties to come up with a solution for, or making a solution for themselves, which is this just a speaker that
it should communicate with.
Yeah.
Like the Dot. That's really not made for playing music. That's just made for using Alexa.
Yeah, exactly. And I get that Apple doesn't want to, it's a smart thing what they're doing. It's heavily differentiating it. They're basically saying you can have both in the house, and it allows them to come in and take over they're going to fight Sonos, not, they're trying to poise it as if we're fighting Sonos, not Amazon, which is smart because it's harder to fight Amazon right now.
When you think about how they make money, Amazon doesn't make money on hardware, so they're totally happy selling it at cost.
Yeah,
that's not the case for Apple.
And so Apple, they're in a position where, and from a market share perspective, Sonos is going to be easier to beat than Amazon. Totally. So it's just, there's a whole bunch of reasons.
So it's funny when you think about Amazon, they're like, we've sold 10 million-ish units, right? That's like, it's in the tens of millions. It's not the hundreds of millions. So there's a part of me that's like, dude, just Apple, because of sheer volume and stuff, they're going to pass Amazon, which is going to be interesting.
Well, and I
don't know.
And it's one of those things
like it's a must-have device.
The other piece of this, and I just come back to it, is that, Google Home they're iterating quickly. Amazon is iterating quickly on the software end of it. And the nice part about it is that it's very easy to do because basically all of the software is run on a remote server. They're just making API calls. Take this audio clip, send it to the server, and the server figures out what to do. It requires very little updating, like on the actual unit itself. It's not like they're doing firmware updates. It's not like they're pushing out all sorts of stuff as they iterate and evolve it. And so the question that the reason why I said I thought the Google Home was a good device is because it understood what you said. It responded quickly. It had all the basics to be able to do that one task. Listen, you take your audio recording, send it to the server, and get a quick response. It had all of these stuff it needed to do that, built in for years to come. So as the software continues to grow and get better and better and better, you get to continue to experience the usefulness of that. And I think the HomePod, is in the exact same category, and arguably even better because they went super far out of the way to be like, to go, they're taking constant audio feedback. So they're listening to how the audio is sounding, adjusting volumes, adjusting audio outputs so that they get this really, really good sound.
Yeah.
And the consequence of that is it becomes very easy to take the music out of the audio processing, which means even a quiet voice can be heard from a distance over loud music.
Right. And Alexa struggles when I get the volume at a certain point.
Yeah. And from everything I've heard from reviews and stuff, the HomePod really knocks it out of the park on that front. So I sit there and I go, as Siri continues to evolve and improve, one of the big things that they talked about was sort of how they didn't talk about it during the keynote, but they've had interviews in the last week where they've talked about the evolution of their AI and how one of the struggles with Siri was they were hitting an upper limit to how good it was at understanding new requests and its ability to evolve and expand. And they were finding it really frustrating right as Google was really starting to take off with their natural language learning stuff. And Apple was like, okay, we'll do that. And they basically have gone in and recreated a lot of those similar technologies. And you're seeing the evidence of that. And so it's like Apple has got a lot of strength and they're moving in the right direction. And it seems like they're doing it pretty quickly. And I think you'll see Siri continue to evolve continue to improve, and they've now put hardware out there that's really, really great at doing this one thing. This is
classic, right? It's something that it's great at one thing. It lacks in a bunch of other areas, which is what happened with the iPhone when it first launched. Everyone loves to rat on the copy paste.
Yeah.
And then but the things that they did right were super important and were enough for you to forgive them for the shortcomings. And for this one, which, by the way, like, I remember, at least for me, I was going to buy a smartphone, period. It was just a question of which one. Like, I was walking in to buy a BlackBerry Curve at the time. And then Apple had just released theirs, a month before I was ready, before my contract was up and I was going to buy. And I walked into the AT&T store and went, well, let me look at it.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy a smartphone, right? And I walked out with an iPhone.
Yeah.
And me and millions of other people. But my point being, like, I was already committed to the smartphone. I knew that's what I was going to do. And so they could get away with it not being perfect, with it being more expensive, with it not having all of the features you would like it to have. Whereas with this device, I sit there and it's like, you can get a dot, connect it Bluetooth to some speakers that you have, or an Echo.
That's the other weird thing that they did that I think was really smart, but kind of confusing, is that they've folded all of their AirPlay speaker technology into HomeKit. So now if anything's connected to an Apple TV, or it's got a Wi-Fi connection, or except for Sonos, it's got Wi-Fi audio, it's got Bluetooth audio, all of those, if you have a connected speaker, you can now control them all through HomeKit. And it's like they did this really, really great thing where there's this missing piece. There's this, like, okay, now I just want something that I can talk to, and I don't want to pay $350 for it. I'm not saying it's got to be $60. I think people are willing to pay, if Google can get away with the Google Home for $100, I honestly think Apple could get away with an Echo Dot for $150. I think they could charge ridiculous prices in the way that only Apple can. But I think that I just think there needs to be a lower cost, because I keep coming back to, it's like, we've got our main living. So this new place I moved into, we've got our main, like, living room entertainment area, right? And it's like, we've got a really nice sound system and an Apple TV and a TV, and it's all rigged together with smart lights. And I'm just sitting there and going, I'm not going to spend $350 to put a really nice additional speaker in there so that we can have people talk at it. And yet that's what we really need, is something we can talk at. It'd be really great if the Apple TV got a microphone. Maybe that's what they would sit there and yell at me and be like, you've got a microphone on the remote. That is I know.
It's totally different. Like, I'm the customer that they want, where, like, I don't have a TV, I don't have a sound system, but I have all the HomeKit smart stuff. And I use my Echo all the time. I mean, it was even just tonight. We were getting ready for dinner, and Jesse was like, we had chili and cornbread, and we put the cornbread into the oven, and Jesse's like, got to set a timer for 25 minutes. And, and I'm, there's that, like, okay, we got about 12 different ways we can do this.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, I was like, Alexa, set a timer for 25 minutes. That was it. And that was because that was the easiest. It was easier because I was holding my kid, and so I couldn't lift up my wrist and do my watch. My phone and iPads weren't near me. I wasn't going to find a timer. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, that was the easiest thing. It didn't have to be a great speaker. And then later on, I was like, let's play some music, play something I like, and I genuinely enjoy, how do I say, there are times when I have a specific playlist, like, I want to play that playlist, and I'm willing to turn on the Apple TV and press the button and to say, play this playlist and have it do it. But man, 95% of the time, I'm like, Amazon, just play something. Here's a station you might like. And which, by the way, I don't know if there is a profanity filter on Alexa, but apparently this morning, Jesse was like, Alexa, play some pop music. And the first one out the gate was just F-bomb central. And she was like, oh my gosh, no, stop. Play something different. Don't listen, kids. And I'm like, I'm sure there's a setting somewhere, but
contextually aware.
Yeah, come on. look at the stuff I shot for. I shot for diapers on your website.
Yeah. I sit there and I go, you know, for me, I like Apple's musicology thing because I like their music. I think they do a good job of curating and using some pretty smart stuff to get it good. But you know, I come back and I tend to, I don't know. They've
opened up that API, so again, like in theory, you'll see that in other devices now and get to still take advantage of their musicology. Specific to their speaker.
All right, and I guess what my problem with it is I try to sometimes take a step back and say, hey, this thing that Apple did isn't for me, or Apple completely missed me, and that's frustrating, but I'm a niche case, and so that's okay. I guess my problem here is I don't think I'm a niche case in this one. I'm with you, man. It's like they do the research, and here's what I know is that they did the research and they figured out people like me. When I got my Echo, I set timers and I listen to music. Yeah. And every once in a while I have it count to 10 and say the ABCs because I have a daughter. Or ask Alexa to sing a song because that's just hilarious. But it also keeps my daughter like, whoa, she's singing to me. And like that's all I use. I don't use their flash news updates. There's a bunch of the skills that I will use once or twice. You know, that's it. I mean, they're cool things. And honestly, and we've talked about this before, like just remembering, it's the difference between like scrolling through and going, oh yeah, that's right, I can use this skill, versus I just have to recall unsolicited that I want it to do this thing. And the commands are very, very specific. And I struggle with like, what was that called again? Make a ditty? Is that it? Yeah, you've communicated that to me before. And this is something that from everything I've ever read, like this is a universal problem with all of the smart home speakers, is the fact that they're not actually really good at Amazon and Google have a lot of skills, but they're not hyper useful because all of the really sophisticated machine learning that they're doing for understanding your words and being able to differentiate different sounds and stuff isn't applied to understanding how to execute a command. And so it becomes very dumb.
Because that's up to the developer, kind of.
Right. And it's done in a way that's not really
robust.
Yeah, exactly. And it can't be, more importantly, because you can't apply that sophisticated machine learning into understand, like there's this bridge that they have to gap between understanding what it is that the service does and then translating what the desire of the person is and then matching to those different, things. And for whatever reason, they're able to build into their internal stuff. They're able to build that up quite well. And maybe they're just, brute forcing it and they put, and they're sitting there going, anybody else could do just as well if they put the same effort that we put into it.
Well, Alexa's isn't that great even for their own stuff.
And it's really hard to, because it's just because you're trying to guess at what people mean before they ever say it. And that's where Apple ran into struggles with Siri originally, that they hit this upper limit of how good it could get. And it wasn't good enough at understanding what people were saying, much less fulfilling particular services. And they're using similar technologies at Amazon and Google right now and they're struggling to really make those services incredibly discoverable and make the fulfillment really straightforward, but the answer to that is better machine learning. Google knows that. That's why they've been so slow about it. Amazon's like, we'll figure it out eventually and, move fast to break stuff. And Apple, I think, I don't know, their solution, I think, is pretty smart in that, and they slowly keep opening up these third-party hooks that you can so the same thing that they did with background apps. No app on your iPhone runs in the background. There's nothing that runs runs once you close an app. In order for it to do stuff in the background, whether it's play music or connect to the internet or whatever, you have to hook on to specific APIs that Apple gives you access to. And so there's a limited and well-defined number of things that you can do in the background. Whereas when the app is open, you can do anything that the computer will let you do. And that's the strategy that Apple's going with, expanding Siri. Is they're saying like, oh, you can now pay, you can call an Uber, you can pay for, stuff using Square Cash or whatever. Those are hooks that any third party can hook onto. If you tell you what service you want to do, and then you can use. And so Apple, I actually think is going to be kind of they'll sneak up on you as the way they're going about doing it, because it worked for the iPhone. It's not unreasonable to think that it'll work for Siri as well. And in classic fashion, Apple might make, or Google might make loops and bounds, or they might struggle just because it's a really difficult problem. And although they're doing great research, I don't know. I think a lot of the negative attitude on that you get from the media is people with like zero imagination that are reading press briefings and just don't see how this is a situation that'll be really different. Like a year, 2 and 3 years from now, the HomePod will be a significantly different device in 3 years than it is today. I mean, it'll be radically different in its capabilities, even though it's the same piece of hardware.
Maybe Apple TV isn't, but maybe.
Okay, that's fair, but I feel like the struggle with that is a relationships content thing. Whereas Apple, Siri is what kind of technology pathways are you following? And you'd be making the argument that they're going to be so bad at engineering that they're not going to be able to, despite their wealth and I don't know. It's possible that it won't be any better, but
I would love to see a HomePod Mini. I think the second they came out with that would be a game changer. And they'd say, look, this HomePod, buy 2. It's for your living room, your biggest space. And then we've got these HomePod Minis that you put everywhere else in your house.
Yeah, it's funny. That's exactly what they're going to do. I'll bet. I'll bet you're right. I'll bet next year they'll do that, and they'll call them Minis. Blah. And eventually they'll come out with a Nano or or an Air version of it.
I got one of those on my wrist, but yeah. I
think you're right. I like it. I actually think it was a good move. I just think that, Apple's being pretty cautious, but it's probably smart for them to be cautious. And they're attacking Sonos, which if Sonos not scared, they should be. The fact that
they already were scared.
Yeah, and the fact that Apple plays nice with literally every other, competitor of Sonos except Sonos is real bad news. I mean, it reminds me of Fitbit, where it's like Fitbit is still outside of Apple, they're the biggest fitness tracker out there. But man, that really changed their horizons when Apple got into the market in a big way. And I think you're going to watch Sonos struggle in a similar way, because now it's like, if I'm going to get a smart speaker, if I want a connected home of speakers, the last thing I'm going to go with is Sonos, because I can't mix and match. Whereas I can just kind of go with the best solution at the best price based on all these other third parties, and HomeKit will just tie them all together and make them work. And that's what I want.
All right, let's switch gears here.
Okay.
Let's keep on the heart. We're going to go reverse chronological order here.
So no problemo.
So iPad Pro, the 10.5 inch is 50% brighter, 120 hertz refresh rate. Apparently the Apple Pencil's better with it. It has leather covers and iOS 11 specific features. It's
the first iPad that I've really wanted since my iPad mini. Like, I don't use my iPad mini anymore. I don't really know where it is. It was the original iPad mini.
It just slows down.
Yeah, it doesn't run anything.
I know about that.
But I've managed to get by with just basically what happens is when I got the 6S Plus, it became
big enough screen,
my mini tablet. And now I'm like, this is the first one that I've seen where I'm like, oh, I kind of want that, especially because it was all the note taking stuff. Because I'm a fanatic when it comes to their notes app, which I think everybody's like, how do you like, there's such other good solutions. Why would you stick with their little notes app? And I'm like, because it's almost dumb in how simple it is. Like it's incapable of so much. It's just whatever you put on it will show up everywhere else. And it's got a couple of dumb small features that it can use, which for me, note taking, that's what I've always wanted. It's like, I don't want these sophisticated lists and different things. And like, no, I'm too like, I want notes, but I'm scattered brained. And this is really cool because it kind of holds true to that. Look, we're not gonna give you a lot of constraints that help you be hyper organized with this. We're gonna just try to deal with whatever garbage you put into it. Like the fact that you can now, using Spotlight, it'll search your handwritten text, which I'm like, cool. That's awesome. That's exactly what I want. I don't want them to convert it into written text. I just want my little scribbles to be there, and I want it to be in these completely like disjointed ways, and I want to just be able to search for them. So this is the first one I'm like, it's the Notes app. That gets me. I want one. But
what do you think about the dock?
The
mini apps, the dock can be as big as you want. You can access it everywhere. It's kind of like a Mac OS dock.
What? Yeah, they're
part of that productivity. They got new spaces, drag and drop, file system.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool.
Quick cropping of screenshots, which is like, man, whatever. I guess that's neat.
Well, yeah. So from a productivity perspective, it's huge. You know,
Do you think it's enough to, reinvigorate the iPad line and get them back to growth and have a bunch of people like yourself go, I'm ready to revisit this? And I heard one theory, but I'm going to wait to share it until you read it.
I would say that's tough. I'd say probably just because I think they've now differentiated themselves enough from the original line of like, it's just enough time has gone by, and people like me, it's a twofolded thing. Number one, enough time has gone by where like I can't even pretend to use mine anymore.
Yeah.
And the refresh cycle is probably closer to 5 or 6 years. And I think there's a whole glut of people that have kind of fallen into, it's been 4 or 5, 6 years since they've had their original. And this one looks pretty awesome. And they're really starting to pump it up. And I would say yes. I think I don't think you're going to see gangbusters growth, but I do think that it will be helpful to the number of units they've sold.
One of the things I was reading about was on Strategery, and he was talking about Apple's strengths and weaknesses and how each of them, compare to it. And one of the things he talked about was, can't find it easily, was this idea of, he goes, look, they're doing a bunch of productivity things which should help, but he was talking about one of Apple's weaknesses is their developer economics. And so he says, the fundamental problem remains that for productivity apps in particular, it's necessary to monetize your best customers over time. Apple has improved the situation, particularly with the addition of subscription pricing and de facto trials, basically starting at a subscription of $0, but hasn't made any moves to support trials or upgrade pricing for paid apps, despite the fact that it's a proven successful business model for productivity applications on the Mac. And so he would say yesterday's iPad software enhancements were welcome and will help, but he suspects letting developers set their own business models would be an even more transformative change. And so for him, he's like, yeah, it's cool, but you're still not going to have the developers join you because you don't give them a clear path to make money. So
yeah, and unfortunately, this was the developers conference. So if they were going to make that changes in the next 365 days, it would have been this week.
Yeah, which I get it. So he's kind of like, yeah, it's pretty neat. You're not going to see some fundamental new apps as a result of it.
Honestly, and for me, it's like,
if you get the usage, you'll figure out the business model. I'm also kind of.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Because for me, I'm sitting here thinking, this is where I've become kind of a niche case in that one of the things I really like to do is to do software development. And I don't know how much I can do on, there's only so much you can do without a command line and access to the root. And
and there was an interview later on with Craig Federini and Phil Schiller, and they're like, dude, you're still going to program on a Mac. That's not going to change.
Yeah.
It's still the best place to do it. But I use my iPad all the time. Now, what's interesting, and this may now change, is so I'll read articles for the show, and I put them all into, and what I do is I put them all into Instapaper, and because that's, one tap, boom, saved. And then I wait until I get onto my Mac to then go through Instapaper, reopen all of the articles, grab the titles, grab the links, and then throw them into our Google document. And I can technically do it on my iPad. It's just, it's 4 or 5 times slower to do it. And I don't feel like, I'm just like, I'll just wait until I can do it all at once.
Yeah.
Whereas with this drag and drop and the better job with a split screen, I go, oh, you know what? I might be able to do all this on an iPad, which would be super nice.
I hear you. I will say this, and I've had to develop a flow work, but most of the time I read when I'm supposed to be working at work. So I just happen to be on a computer. But I have gotten to the point where on my phone, if I'm just goofing off or whatever, and I start flicking through articles on Feedly, I've gotten to the point where I just post everything directly to Google Docs, just flipping back and forth. And I'm only about 1.5 times slower. Like, it's only about 1.5 the amount of time. So a 50% increase, which is pretty fast. So it's completely palatable. The only thing I can't do is have multiple tabs open. So like on the computer, and I think that the new upgrades to iOS won't solve that, won't change it enough where it's like I can have 100 different tabs open or 20 different tabs for articles and pre-open stuff.
Well, I don't do it that way anyways.
I know. Well, I guess what my point is, it just comes back to there was a lot of hay being made about it. It's like, it's finally a productivity. We're starting to see the true realization of it as a full productivity device.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just, it's a lot more powerful of a mobile device. And it's like an SUV. If the Mac is a tractor / truck, and the iPhone is a 4-door sedan, it's an SUV. It can do a little bit more, but it still pretty much stays on the roads and just moves people around.
That was exactly the analogy that Phil Schiller gave, by the way.
Really? I didn't know that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, because they parking it back to like, so at one point Jobs was talking, trucks and cars, and how does this fit in? And Schiller was like, well, he goes, trucks are still there, still the computers, definitely. And he goes, cars, he goes, that's probably your phone, because that's what the majority of people have. You have it with you all the time. You're just using it. And he goes, and the iPad, he goes, I think it sits somewhere in the middle. And he goes, maybe it's an SUV, or a little bit of both, and it has a purpose.
That's hilarious. Well, and that's why, to me, I sit there and I go, the one thing that gets me really excited about it is a really sophisticated, the ability to handwrite notes, because that's something that I find is still lacking. I don't have a digital replacement to that, and drawing graphs and writing out equations and doing stuff by hand. I still have to pull out a piece of paper, and if I could do that digitally, that'd be great. But anyways, that's kind of where I'm at. So no, I'm not gonna get one. I'm gonna get a Mac first, a portable, stupid computer.
Fair enough. So at what point in time did puns get renamed to dad jokes? I missed that transition.
You're such a dad.
What I know. Well, apparently, like, anytime someone makes a pun, now that's a dad joke, which I like puns. I am a dad, so I guess it works. But that was one of the feedback. They were like, man, so many dad jokes in that. I'm like, they're just puns. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're still, because a dad joke is different. Like, a dad joke is, Yeah, I don't know. It's you know what it's just lazy language use, man. I've been really disappointed by reporters this WWDC.
So this next one, it goes to 11.
Yeah.
Right, iOS 11. Woohoo!
That's awesome.
They did some cool things, I thought. I definitely, so they made a change with iMessage where now the different things you can do are going to be a lot more obvious instead of it being
hidden,
tucked under a random icon, which I look at it regularly and I still don't know what it means. But now you just be able to scroll and see them. I think that's super smart. So I think you're going to see a lot more apps being used in iMessage. I wish, and maybe they'll come out with more of the like different ways to send messages, where you press and hold and it gives you more options, but
yeah,
we'll see. They've got the idea that messages are synced over iCloud. It's kind of like, yeah, finally. That took forever.
Yeah.
And so that'll be super nice. The pay to pay.
Yeah, it's funny.
They wasted time on it, but
it's funny how that like we all sit there and like everybody's so irritated about them not being synced by iCloud, and that is such an enormous technical challenge in order to do what they're trying to do at the scale they're trying to do it. It's just, it's funny how like underappreciated that is. I mean, you sit there and go like, well, Google can do it. It's a completely different system. I mean, Google reads every one of your messages. Apple can't. That poses a unique challenge.
Text messaging somewhere in there too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. Let's see here. Siri gets a little bit better voice. Apparently, I know they played it during the keynote, and I was like, oh, I guess that's better. I don't know.
Yeah, we made a big deal about it when Google did this late last year. It's just it's basically what you do is you take the algorithm that you used to understand language and you reverse it to produce language. It really is it's a landmark in understandability as opposed to, I don't know, it's something that machine learning geeks get really into because they're like, oh, that's cool. And it does have this, I don't know. Siri was pretty good to begin with. The biggest thing I think now is that it's easier to produce different types of voices. And so you might see it's actually a bigger deal for adding new languages and
right.
And adding new tones and voices and stuff. It just makes that process a lot easier because now because of how it produces sounds, it does it it's just a lot easier. So
makes sense.
It's cool.
So apparently people are taking 1 trillion photos a year on their iOS devices, which is a big number.
There's a couple of pictures.
They're doing a new picture format, the HIEF, the HEIF, which would be interesting. And I think that's a great example of software and hardware coming together.
What does that stand for?
I don't know. High information, effortless fidelity. I just made that up.
I know.
It sounds legitimate. Yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting. Again, that's something that they can do. They claim it's still portable, which will be interesting. The looping live photos. I'm actually interested in the long exposure thing. They just continue to kind of just chip away at, here's why you should get an expensive camera.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. What do you think about the control center?
I like it. I use the, what's it called? I use Control Center all the time. And now that like HomeKit is on the third pane over, I'm like, oh, that's kind of annoying. I like the fact that they're kind of condensing it, make it bigger and move it, give you more utilities right there. Yeah. I like it. I think it's a good move. And, it just makes it more discoverable kind of, and it's better use of space, I think. So I like it.
Okay.
Everybody who's going to be surprised by it will absolutely hate it. Why'd you change something that was working, bud? But
let's see. They changed notifications somehow, and I'll be honest, I didn't totally understand what it was that they did. It's like you could see them on the lock screen, or if you if you have your phone open and you go to your notifications, you're back on a lock screen or something. I don't know.
I have a feeling it'll make a lot more sense once you get there.
Yeah, probably. So I don't get the. So we talked about their maps last week, right?
Yes.
And so they updated them to now include inside information for like malls and airports,
which is great.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Why?
It seems like a waste of time to me. I just don't.
Oh man, I use this stuff on Google all the time.
Okay, all right.
To me, and it's the lane and the lane by lane stuff is amazing.
Do they now have lane by lane stuff?
Yes, that was one of the others.
That.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big deal.
That's some parody stuff that I'm grateful for, because that makes navigating way easier. And
if they could just get it to tell me to turn slightly faster, I'd be happy with that.
I mean, the big thing is they'll just tell you as soon as you need to, I hear what you're saying, but to me, the biggest thing is it's like I now know which lane I need to be in order to make this next move. That's awesome. And yeah, honestly, the inside the building stuff is a bigger deal for if you're going somewhere new. I don't know. Anytime I travel, it's really nice to be like, oh, I want to go to this restaurant. And this happens to me. This has happened to me in Asia a lot, where I'm like, oh, I want to go here. This looks good. And then you get there and you realize it's a skyscraper with 8 stories with restaurants. And you're like, where am I supposed to go? just give me the information. Tell me what floor. And Google's been doing that for quite a while, and it's pretty clutch.
What do you think about the driving do not disturb?
Stop working on that and start working on self-driving cars. You know what I'm saying? I talked with a guy this week who works for a software company. I'm trying not to get him in trouble. And it is a software company who knows beyond all shadow of a doubt the full depth and breadth of Apple's car development stuff. And it's like, we all knew they were developing a car. There was no question that they were developing a car, but I've never had somebody just been like, oh yeah, we sold them the software so they can develop a car. I got that this week. I was like, whoa, that's okay. That's kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, I get why, geez, I just don't have any problem not paying attention to it. If I'm paying attention to the phone while I'm driving, it's because I've decided to pay attention to the phone while I'm driving, not because I'm I don't have any self-control when I get the ding. So it's just not a huge thing for me, but I guess it's good. Some people are gonna like it. It's cool.
Fair enough. What did you think about their relaunch of Ping?
Right. You mean their ripoff of Spotify?
Yeah, that one.
It seems they've been trying somewhat relentlessly to get that off the ground, and I think the reason why it worked for Spotify is because it wasn't a central platform feature. It wasn't a social network. Spotify is not a social network for sharing music. It's something that it does on the side. And and that's exactly what it feels like they're doing here. And which I think means that it's more likely to have legs.
It's like Scott Galloway did a YouTube video this week, and he interviewed a guy talking about apps, and a colleague of his wrote a book called Irresistible, which looks really good. I want to read it. And one of them, he talks about why phones are irresistible and why certain apps succeed and others don't. And he was talking about Instagram versus, I think it was Hipstamatic. And he was like, one of them got bought by $1 billion and is ginormous. The other one you've probably never heard of. He goes, and there was one difference and one difference only. One of them had a social network and the other did not. And I get the sense that Apple recognizes that and those networking effects, and they keep wanting to be like, we want to give you a reason besides just the music library. Though it's very clear they're all in on Apple Music, all in on subscriptions. They're like, yeah, we'll let you buy songs, but we really don't want you to anymore. And you think about like the HomePod, right? They're like, it works with Apple Music. But what if I have a library? It works with Apple Music. But what if I have a library? It works with Apple Music.
Right, yeah.
You know? And I get it. I'm totally okay with them making those decisions. But you also get the sense like they want to give you a reason beyond just the portfolio, the 40 million songs that they mentioned more than once, that you can, give you a reason to stick around. But I also am like, it just doesn't, something about it. But maybe the fact that it's not in your face will be okay. But I don't know.
Right.
They also redesigned the App Store to make it look a lot more like Apple Music, which I actually think will be good for a lot of app developers, because for some app developers, because it'll give you an opportunity to, just get more apps featured and discovered and things like that, which would be good. All right, let's go back to the hardware.
What?
Oh, was there something else on iOS 11 you want to talk about?
Are you actually serious right now? Or are you just trying to... You being a dork?
I was going to move on, but go for it.
Like the number one thing that like everybody's talking about is AR.
Whatever.
You're just not going to get around to it eventually?
I want to talk about hardware.
Like, whatever. I'm like, geez, Louise.
No, do it.
Yeah, no, they launched ARKit. And it...
Oh, yeah, that's right. AR.
They also launched an API for the depth sensing camera, which
shocker.
For the record, were two things that I predicted. I was really surprised that nobody was talking about them doing that, and there's very little excitement about it. But it sounds like they're using machine vision and machine learning in order to process locations, so they can, it's funny. Microsoft announced the exact same feature like 3 weeks ago. That like they're contextually aware. Facebook, this is how they're doing a lot of their processing. Like Snapchat, this is how they're doing their things. Like everybody's doing it the same way. And ARKit is Apple's framework for doing this.
Yeah.
And Facebook is going to continue to push their technology. They always like to compete, to develop competing frameworks. But they're, to whatever success, you'll see both of them continue to push that forward. But this is pretty huge in that, if you're a developer and you want to build something up really quickly and easily with a lot of flexibility, this is where you're going to go first. The fact that Google doesn't have this for anything but the Tango phone, and by all accounts, the Tango phone is probably going to be more performant, just better at understanding the world around it and actual sizes and locations and stuff. But Apple's seems like it's doing a pretty good job of doing this AR stuff and just making it very accessible. And the big thing that this gives them is that because it's works on old phones, it instantly gives them this giant market that nobody else has. And and
this was part of that difference of like, and we're shipping it now.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a pretty big deal. One of the links that we have is the first AR apps that are coming out of developers, which are just super simple stuff. One of them is like a spray paint tagging app where basically you spray paint in 3D around the room and then you can look at it. It's like Tilt Brush, but in your kitchen. Okay. Which you're like, that's pretty cool that how quickly these developers are able to spin stuff up, considering the fact that like it was literally, they did the big, they actually unveiled AR. They talked about ARKit during the keynote, but they didn't do the actual like lessons and stuff until I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday. And this article came out like Thursday where they were talking about these are the first apps that people are building. Oh, that's pretty impressive time-wise.
Fidget spinners.
Yeah, some of them are dumb, some of them are really cool, and some of them are like show potential. And it's one of those things where this is a pretty neat first step in it. And I think the interesting thing to me and where I get excited is, Tim Cook he's got a bad poker face when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I think that what you're going to see is that this really is the first step. And I have a suspicion that they're going to do something in this next generation, this next iPhone 8, where they're going to push the depth sensing even further, to the effect of it really does allow you to build sensors that are aware of the space you're in a 3D map setting, in a way that is just far and beyond everything else. And I have a feeling that you're going to see some. They're not done even this year. I think when the iPhone 8 comes out and we actually get to see the final piece of hardware, and on top of that, because all the pieces are already there, and I just have a feeling that developers who decide to get a little bit clever are gonna get a little bit clever, and now that you can access all of these things directly, and you don't have to do the real heavy working development. I don't know. I get excited about this. I get excited about this because it's,
when you think about like Pokemon Go wasn't the best implementation in the world, but everybody loved it. And now you have an opportunity just to do those things a little bit better.
Yeah. And
I think like Facebook and Snapchat and those guys, they're going to go, yeah, why not? We'll use what they're using because it works really well.
Yeah. Well, I actually don't think Facebook and Snapchat will, just because they've already spent so much. They've already sunk so much money into their own development platform. And once they've done that, they usually like to try to compete with Apple. But
the problem is you're going to have some other random little camera thing come along and go, oh, look, we do it too now.
Yeah, well, exactly. I could see Snapchat. Oh, who knows with Snapchat? I don't care about them. They're tiny nothing of a company.
Facebook, Instagram.
Well, but I could see, I think a third party will come along and probably adopt these. And I think the big thing is that it'll just be, it's this cool differentiating thing for Snapchat right now, that, you could do this sort of, tracking, or, Facebook, same thing. And all of a sudden, literally everybody can do it. For me, I do 3D CAD design, right? And now all of a sudden, every single 3D CAD is going to be like, well, just put a little AR thing in there so you can visualize the part on the table or in
that'd be cool.
Space. It would be awesome. And especially if you couple that with an iPad, that's pretty good. That's pretty neat.
It definitely, you can tell too, like, eventually this is going to make its way into a pair of glasses.
Yeah. Yeah.
When the guy was up there and he's like, they're playing a game and he's like walking around with his iPad up here, you're just like, yeah, that's not the future.
Right.
Pair of goggles. That's where this is headed.
Yeah.
Obvious. You're just not there yet, which is fine. And you got to do this. You're going to build out the content. It's all going to make sense on our tablets and our phones.
See, and this is the big thing, is that, Facebook might have a competing thing and Microsoft might. Well, and that's where it gets really interesting, is Facebook will use their own framework. Microsoft will sit there and go, oh, that's good enough. We'll just implement whatever our final software packages are. We'll use Apple's APIs and just go that way.
Totally.
And that is something that I think is very realistic, that will really give Apple a lot of, give Apple's framework a lot of steam. And
you're all of a sudden, you're going to watch where it's going to be interesting, like Twitter, they're going to go, hey, we could, augment your own photos on Twitter now.
Yeah.
Like, on Periscope, right? All of a sudden you're going to see these other platforms where, like, they're big on their own right. They're not necessarily Snapchat or Facebook, but you're just going to watch all these features come to parity super quick.
Right.
And these augmented photos and videos, it's just going to be a thing. And it's going to be cool. And the differentiator is no longer going to be, can you do it? It's going to be, what can you do with it? Like, what's your content packs and stuff like that? Like, what are your stickers?
Right.
I don't know. I feel like saying what's your stickers is going to sound dumb in 2 years.
Yeah, right. But it's because it will. But yeah, I think that this is really big. And
again, the big deal is like you said, developers started making stuff on Thursday.
Yeah.
Which means by the time they actually release this thing in the fall, you're going to have a few dozen apps that have it, and you're going to have 2 or 3 where you're like, well, this is actually worth downloading and trying out.
Yeah.
They're gonna blow it up. It's gonna be great.
The other framework that I think is worth mentioning is they've announced the Core ML, which is their core machine learning API, and it's all accelerated using Metal, which is their new graphics engine that they've been building up for a while. And just it's one of those things where, you know, I know like people talk about how far Apple's behind on AI stuff. I'm just like, they're not that far behind. And especially because they're attacking it at a different angle that nobody else is really working on right now, which is how much of this can we handle on the phone? And whereas Google, Microsoft, because they don't own the hardware, they can't build software packages that execute on the phone. Everything has to get sent to the cloud first. So anything that needs to happen on the phone in order for it to perform well, they just can't do. And that's actually the biggest thing I think you'll get out of this framework is that they're like Apple's building graphics cores that are designed to work specifically with machine learning. And that machine learning is being implemented in this AR kit. And so that you get these different stacks where they get rid of all the middlemen, they get rid of all the bloat and waste, and all of a sudden you get these accelerations these hardware accelerations that just nobody else can achieve. And not because they're necessarily doing it better or more cleverly than everybody else, it's just because they get rid of the bloat, which has been their strategy for super high performing phones forever. Why does JavaScript run fastest on the iPhone? It's because they got rid of the bloat that nobody else can get rid of. You know, it's not because they're the best JavaScript engine developers on earth.
Again, it's that whole, we own the entire stack, so we can do some of this stuff. And just the way they think about privacy, it forces them to come up with this type of solution.
Yeah. And I think you're going to see, it's funny. It's become very clear that they're not going to announce that they're like coming up with a machine learning core. I think what they're going to say is they might change the name of the graphics, the GPUs, but it's like there was a time where there was a suspicion that they were going to be like, yes, we're introducing a machine learning chip, but it just doesn't seem to be the case. They're really focusing on Metal is is the layer of software that you use to access the graphics core, and everything else, all of our machine learning, all of our graphics, it's built on top of Metal. And which I think might mean they might change the name of the GPUs. And as they become more, I don't know. I just think their strategy forward has become very clear on how they're going to deal with machine learning and how they're going to differentiate themselves from Google and Facebook and Microsoft. And I think it's a good strategy because, you know, a lot of what they implement they're just going to be able to do something that nobody else can do. And
well, it's kind of nice. I mean, it's funny. They're flipping the equation. Like with Siri, they're saying we will do everything, whereas Amazon is like, we will do nothing.
Yeah.
we'll let skills be where it's at. And it's almost like with this Core ML, they go the opposite direction and say, we will build the platform, but we're not going to focus on doing the machine learning ourselves. Right. Whereas Google is like, we're going to do the machine learning ourselves. We're going to teach you how to do photos and other stuff. It's like awesomely. And, and Apple's like, yeah, we had to do some of it so we could figure out what was useful. But ultimately, we want to put this back into developers and have you guys create your own machine learning. And what is it you want to learn? And it's stuff, which I know I've got an idea for this company that I've worked on that does involve photos. And for me, I'm like, I don't know how to do any of this. And now I look at this and go, path forward.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that a lot of the same principles of machine learning are stuff that Apple and Google and
they all know it hasn't changed in 20 years.
Wait, what? The principles of machine learning? Yeah. No. See, those things are moving very fast. They are developing quickly, but they're all shared principles. The difference is that everybody else is building.
I think we're talking about two different things, but anyways,
everybody else is building on a server. Everybody else is building these things to run with a lot of horsepower. Apple's the only company that's saying, let's make it run efficiently on a handheld. And I think that gives them, there are going to be certain types of machine learning tasks that's actually going to be super ideal. And nobody else is going to have an answer to that. Are they going to fall behind in other areas? Yeah, probably a little bit. But there are things that they'll be able to do that. And one of the examples that I was given with talking with one of my friends, and how you can go into photos and type grass and it'll bring up pictures of grass fields.
Yeah.
And none of that information left the phone. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool. What other kind of solutions can you come up with where you're like, it needs to be really, 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 really fast. And and the time that it takes to go to the server and come back is too long. And that is where I think Apple is going to find solutions like ARKit that are going to be difficult for everybody else to compete with over time. So I don't know. I think it was a big deal, big move. It's cool. Big first step.
Agree. Anything else for iOS 11?
I don't think so.
All right. Let's so you'll get the connection. So my daughter's awesome. And she knows that I'm into Superman. She knows how to say Superman, but she says it in her own cute little way, like, it's like Superman or something like that. Anyways, when I'm wearing like a Superman shirt or something, she goes, "You're like on this, no, Superman." Which I'm just like,
that's pretty good,
cool. And she has an Avengers shirt that she likes to wear. That when she sees it, she'll go, no, Superman. Like, okay, I'll take it. If there was a way that you were going to get confused about this, I like the way you got confused about it. All that to say, Apple has decided to come out with their own Batman computer.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes really, really, really dark gray.
Exactly. So it's the iMac Pro. I want one.
Who could have predicted that? I don't.
What?
This is where I get into my. I don't think they learned.
Wrong.
Honestly,
want one.
No, I know. Honestly,
if you had an extra $5,000 to just throw away, I guarantee you'd throw it in this direction.
No,
You've already said you were interested in getting a Mac Mini.
No.
An upgraded Mac or something.
My thing is it's all the wrong lessons learned. They've soldered everything to the boards again, which is extra irritating considering the fact that
How do you know that? Because I heard on their new iMacs, it's modular again.
See, that's what's crazy is that those have gone modular, and yet they've already talked about how they're building this thing up and showing that it's like, no, that's not the case. The two new iMacs.
What do you care? Are you ever gonna upgrade it?
Okay, I wouldn't buy it. I don't buy iMacs. So this is not for me. This is a criticism of the plan of the company. I think that it's fine. It's a high powered computer. It's well built.
You can do VR.
Thing. Yes, evidently you can do some VR. But the issue is that how is this any different than the Mac Pro that they came out with a couple of years ago? It's the same. It's an all-in-one super tight package that's not upgradable. It doesn't actually answer the core criticism. And I recognize that they've announced that sometime in the year 2018 they're going to come out with a modular Mac Pro.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I don't know. It's hard for me to get excited about a device that's like, okay, so what have we learned? You had this big mea culpa where you realized, we did something terrible. We shouldn't have done what we did. And I don't know. It's all the more irritating because it was completely predictable to the effect of we predicted it during our prediction show this year. And I don't know. I just it's fine. It looks like a nice computer, but it's really expensive. It's not upgradable. It doesn't affect me. I wasn't going to buy one anyways, but so it's not like I'm upset. It's just, I wonder about the company's strategy in the professional market, because I do think that matters. I do think I think one of the reasons why they did a lot of stuff this year in this area where they're like, you know, we're gonna start playing nice with NVIDIA chips. We're gonna start playing nice with these external GPUs. We're gonna really push this because they've realized that they want to build up this AR content, and a lot of developers want to build AR content in VR, and they're sitting there going, you know, we don't have an offering for that. We don't have a place where the developers who need a lot of horsepower the tip of the spear guys can develop content that can go onto these AR platforms. And this was built out of necessity for the fact that they had this cool platform that they were building that they knew was very state of the art. And it's just like, and it feels like it. I think all of these answers to me just feel like, oh, we need something, put something together. And I don't know. It's just, I don't know what I was expecting.
You're just reading the mood.
I know. I don't know what I was. I don't know what I was.
It's the lamest thing ever. It's expensive. It doesn't hit the mark. They just made it because they had to. Yeah. I would never get one anyways.
I know.
Way to go, Buzzkill.
I know. Well, you know, they did a lot of cool stuff. The
color's cool.
It's
actually, I'm excited. Just on the regular Macs now, you can get a keyboard that has the 9 keys on it. The keypad.
Yeah.
Man, I just want that.
Their upgraded laptops look really nice. I mean, you know, they got the.
It's true. Well, they upgraded laptops and their other iMacs. I mean, they upgraded the internals of everything.
Yeah.
Except for the one thing they'll do in September, October.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. That's how it works. It deserves its own event.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. 18 cores though. That sounds like a lot.
It's a beast.
There's some things where they're like, it's got, I don't know, bazillion teraflops per second. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. It sounds like a lot. It must mean a lot because people start clapping when they talk about those numbers. Like they don't.
Yeah, it matters a lot what software it's built on, and you know, and the fact that I don't know, I'd like it to see it play nicer with NVIDIA than it does, just because I think that and I don't know.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's talk about another dad joke. Hi, Sierra.
Yeah, it's fully baked. Californians, jeez Louise.
Oh, such a dad joke.
I know. It's it's hilarious. This is like we don't have a new operating system. We just have some new features we're pushing out, and
they do this every other year. It's all good.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks nice.
But you also get the sense of like, honestly, like I think yes, that was a joke to say fully baked, but it's also like, no, we're done. We're refining.
Yeah.
Like, don't expect any big changes ever. Like I feel like it felt like I would say Windows 7 to Windows 10, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Was there an 8 or 9 in there? I feel like there was an 8 at one point.
Anyways, nobody liked it.
That's right. Anyways, I felt like that was a pretty big change.
Yes.
You know, and with Apple, they're kind of like, nah, we nailed it. We're good. It's fine. Any new sort of feature touch thing, which I get, Windows is going down this path of like one interface for all devices. So therefore, they're going to integrate whatever new touch features they get into the whole thing, whereas Apple's clearly not doing that. But as a result, they're kind of like, yep, we're good. We got it. Sounds like Safari's super fast, and they're not going to autoplay videos anymore.
Yeah, there was some cool things that
people are excited about.
Yeah, there's some cool features that they put into Safari, specifically like the no tracking, no autoplaying of videos, and that I think are going to be pretty big, especially because those are changes that can reach across multiple device platforms. But the no tracking one, I actually had a really interesting article about how Apple will make it harder for advertisers to track you, which will actually make Google and Facebook more powerful.
Yeah,
because it ends up being that they're the ones that they have the back ends to sort of get around, and they have more information than anybody now. It actually these like super cookies that Apple's going to go around blocking are leveled the playing field in a lot of ways when it came to tracking people. And now Google and Facebook are the only ones with the reach with their different OAuths, things to really continue to get all of that information, so to become even more important to advertisers and people who are looking for data analytics. And yeah, which I'm not sure if that was Apple's goal, but well, I think their Apple goal was as simple as their goal was as simple as they made it out to be, which is, look, we just don't like people tracking us with super cookies, so we're going to stop them. We're going to use AI to do it. What does the A stand for?
Man, this could be the end of ads if Chrome's going after. Oh, wait, Safari is doing it differently. Yeah, this will be interesting.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting. I think it'll be really interesting. I like it. Kind of stand up for us. This seems like a class.
You get this sense where it's like there's a new type of browser war erupting, where at one point in time it was all about speed, and to an extent it still is. But it's also like, internet speeds are pretty fast. Browsers are pretty efficient. Like at some point in time, at least for me, I'm like, good enough. If my browser's slow, it's because I have an internet problem, not because I have a browser problem for the most part. And granted, all I use is Chrome and Safari, and that's it. And so it feels like, and the extension thing, I don't know about you, but I've got like 2, maybe 3 extensions. I feel like the things that I used to crave, they slow down enough where I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. Or they've just been built into it. Ad blocker is still one of them. So there's that. LastPass, I guess, for my passwords would be the other extension, which I'm going to have no matter what. And anyways, it feels like there's this new trend because, remember, Google with Chrome is like, we're going to start blocking ads unless they're, quote, good by our definition. Yeah. Which I think, as we talked about, has all sorts of antitrust potential issues about it. I know Apple's going kind of the same thing of like, ads aren't, they're going at the privacy route, but also just saying ads are hugely inappropriate and intrusive and we don't like it. And so we're going to attack it in a way that's important to us. I don't know. It's just interesting to see how it's the advertising world is now under attack, but in 2 very different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like I said, I think the big thing here is that, if it were just Safari for High Sierra, that'd be one thing. It's a relatively small user base. The issue is that the core underlying libraries that they implement on High Sierra, they're going to implement on the iPhone too, which is a huge user base. And so it really is going to cut off a lot of advertisers from a giant market. And yeah, it will affect them. And now it's going to become it becomes a game of cat and mouse, really and truly. But, Apple blocks one thing and advertisers have to figure out how to deal with that. But, they're using some pretty sophisticated tools to do it, it sounds like. And, I think you're going to see, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's an interesting way to put it. It's a new feature set that is coming out. New features, a new area of features that browsers are going to start pursuing, which is protect you from the invasiveness of the internet, whether it's dumb ads, things that make the internet experience really annoying, like self-playing videos, or just privacy. Things that there are.
I'm sorry. I don't need to say anymore. We're good. Stop. That's annoying. Retargeting stuff. Let's see. Was there anything else in macOS that was worth? They're changing fundamentals, right? The Apple's file system, changing the video, editing in VR. Quote. That's it.
Yeah.
Watch OS 4. You think yours will work on it?
No. Yeah, I think it'll work a little bit, but.
So what do you think of that new Siri watch face?
I don't know. Depends if it works or not.
I know. I was kind of in that same boat where I'm like, yeah, it seems cool, but I also feel like 90% of the time this could be useless. I don't feel like I live an exciting enough life. Or better, let me say it differently. I feel like almost all the time it's going to be what my next meeting is. And I don't want to see that. I just, that's not fun for me.
I will say this. I do want to give Apple credit when you pull down that from pull down that little thing of Siri app suggestions. They're remarkably useful for me.
Siri app suggestions?
Yeah, if you swipe down in the middle of your home screen,
it pops up
on your iPhone.
On my iPhone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Siri app suggestions.
And I find that they're actually.
Oh, there we go.
I actually find that it's remarkably useful for coming up with this is kind of what you want. I bet.
I agree.
And I have a feeling you got to use it. It's got to learn you, James. It's not, it's not a mind reader. It's a mind learner.
Well,
yeah, I want to try it out. I think it sounds cool.
Well, for me, it's like I use their calendar. Well, I use Google Calendar, which is connected to that. But I use Remember the Milk for my to-do list. I rarely use their reminders. Actually, I use their reminders for like daily reminders, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I just have a feeling that it could get monotonous, I guess.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that's likely, but it maybe not. I don't know. It's also just I will say this actually on top of it. I find these Siri suggestions for their maps are really useless most of the time. Like most of the time, I either want to go home or go to work, and that's what I just want to quick press in and just trying to figure out what the traffic situation is. And it's amazing how often that's not one of my options. And they're trying to make it really sophisticated and be like, no, we know exactly what you need because we'll just put the one thing like in the press down. I'm like, yeah, but if you put the top 3 most likely ones, then you really increase the odds of being right, and I'm more likely to force press into it. But if it's wrong, once out of every 3 tries, I'm less and less likely to use it. And that's the thing that's the challenge that I think they have. That's why I'm saying like their Siri suggested apps works really well for me because they're suggesting 8 different apps. And yeah, I do want one of those apps. Wow, that's pretty good. And what I find is that for certain frequent app uses, like they end up being there, and I kind of learned that, okay, this is where I go for this information. And whereas when they failed to do that for a UI reason, like with their maps, I learned that, that information isn't there consistently, it's somewhere else consistently. And I think that that's a fear for me that could happen with the Apple Watch, is that if they're trying to guess the number one thing that you need and only present you that information ever, you're just going to learn, oh, my watch face doesn't have the information I'm looking for, and I'm just going to end up using a different watch face. And then that doesn't help them because it has to learn. It gets better over time, but people are pretty impatient. So if it's not right away, I'm hoping that they do a good way of having multiple complications, multiple chunks of information that are readily available for you.
Yeah, I've got a different watch face for each band, but I have a minimum of 3 things I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know the time.
Yeah.
I want to know the date, and I want to know what my activity levels are.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it just being the rings. It doesn't have to spell it out for me. I find the rings are good enough because I just want to see where I'm at on that. I'm at the very least be able to quickly tap in and zoom in on it. I'm like, as long as I got those things, I'm pretty happy. Looking at theirs, they've got the date and the time. That's it. I guess maybe my movement goals can be one of the things that are going up and down. I don't know, but
for me, it's there's 5 pieces of information that I have on all of my different watch faces, and it's the date, it's the time, it's my activity rings, it's a timer, and it's the time in London.
Wait, what's that? The time in London?
Yeah. We do enough.
Random.
Well, we do enough work with people around the globe, and for whatever reason, it's either got to be Singapore or London for me to remember. And I can remember the other based on, I'm like, okay, if it's that time in London, it's about this time in Singapore, or vice versa. I can extrapolate quickly, but I can't do it cold. If I just know the time here, I'm like, wait, what time is it there?
Gotcha. The first thing that they announced, which was the weakest thing, is Amazon Prime Video is coming to Apple TV, but that's all they're doing.
What? That's not the weakest. That's the weak awesomest. There's
just no other updates to tvOS. That's my point.
Well, I think that's because it's got a hardware update coming that it's barreling down the pipe. They're getting ready for.
Just speak to Siri.
They're getting ready for a 4K version of it. A lot of the video quality stuff that they were talking. They made a big deal about how they're upgrading to the next version of their video compression, and it will make 1080p video look a lot better and stream a lot faster. That's definitely true, but everybody else who's upgraded to that has also simultaneously done it with 4K. And so everybody's like, yeah, that's what that's about. They're gearing up for 4K content, and Amazon has got a lot of 4K content, and I think what you're going to see is a new 4K TV come out, and it sounds like they're probably I don't know. Tim Cook made that absurd statement of the TV app, the one place to go and watch all of your TV. And I have never used it intentionally. Every once in a while, I hit the button accidentally, and I think, what is this? Why am I stuck here? Give me back. But they're clearly trying to make that, to be that as a one-stop shop for all of your potential videos, wants, dreams, and desires.
They also had 2, I would say, non-keynote things happen this week, since we're sticking on the Apple theme. Unless you have something else about the keynote you'd like to
No, that's right.
Hit up. So the first one was Planet of the Apps released this week. I think I made it through a quarter of the first episode.
Yeah. Why didn't you make it through the rest of it?
Because it's boring. Yeah,
that's kind of what I guessed. Just personalities involved seemed like it'd be impossible to get into.
Well, they had and we'll post this. It's a review of it, and I thought they nailed it. Where they were just like, they don't get into the human side of the story. It's like they're going through the motions of, you make a pitch, we'll decide, then you get a coach, you might get funding, you go through another round, you talk to a VC. Like, it's very they don't slow down and tell you the story. They assume that you know who Zane Lowe is. They assume you know who these 4 judges are. And part of me that's like, what has Gwyneth Paltrow done that qualifies her to be this person?
Well, I think that's part of the problem is you can't make a case for why she's on the board. It's really hard, and
they went for celebrities instead of qualified people. What I heard was like it's a watered down Shark Tank, where they have one interesting idea in terms of this escalator thing, which I'm even like, dude, just let them give a full pitch. I don't know. It's weird. So, but it's just like one of the examples they gave was apparently there's these 2 dudes that are like college roommates that they have an interesting app idea, and they did this. They did an interview where they did a pitch to some VCs, and it did not go well. Apparently, I haven't seen it, but it didn't go well. And they were like, "That should have been they take a moment, they interview them, you get your thoughts, you feel the emotion of the burn of what they're going through and the hopelessness of it, and let the viewers feel the trough. And by the way, the entire time have built up their story and who they are and make me root for them, so that when they get into the situation, I hurt with them.
Right.
And sit on that moment. Let me feel it. And they go, no, it's just on to the next pitch. They don't even ask them a question, how'd it go? It's just on to the next pitch.
That's infuriating, because it's like that is what makes the singing contest, American Idol. That was what made it so great, was that they would legitimately dig into these people's stories and how they got there and like why they were there and everything. And that was always the bet. Is this one of these ridiculous they can't sings? Is this oh my gosh, they're one of the best singers in America? Or is this one of those like in the middle ones where they're pretty good, but they're not going to make it, and it's going to be heartbreaking? And like, that's what makes the show, that's what makes it entertaining. Like, nobody actually cares. Nobody's going to buy these apps. Like most VCs, they fund 10 apps, and if one of them hits big, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. So what you're saying is basically you're almost 100% guaranteed that none of these apps are going to become a big deal in the next 10 years. So why do we care? Why are we talking about this? Other than for the entertainment aspect of it. Give me something more. That's disappointing. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure look at the feedback, but it's like, dude, just hire one of those people from Survivor or whatever that is just good at the story aspect of it, and realizing that it's humans, not apps. Like the irony of the name of the show, it's not about the app. It really isn't. And I don't know. Like I said, I got like a quarter of the way into it and was like, man, whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, I like Will.i.am. I think he's a clever dude, and like he's is pursuing that where art meets technology stuff. But he hasn't been successful. Why are we? Oh, geez, this feels like such a bad idea. It feels like everybody on every level is mailing it in. It feels like something that was made in committee. It's like, we're Apple, we do apps, so we should leverage that. And like, yeah, nobody ever walked in and said genuinely what would make this exciting and fun for people.
It's almost like they needed the jobs to go, this is bad. It's like there were a bunch of yes men all along the way. Oh yeah, it's good. Yeah. It's really, I really like this aspect of it. And, it's like they were trying to get the good feedback, and at no point someone was like, this is boring. Or if someone said that, they're like, you just don't get it.
Yeah, that's, and like, you know what it is? It's because the elevator pitch for Planet of the Apps sounds great. It's Shark Tank meets iPhone meets American Idol. And you're like, wow, if you could get the deep expertise and like the real life economic drama of Shark Tank with the development and the entertaining judges of American Idol, and it's something that we all carry around. It's something very visceral that we ask, who came up with this app? How did they become a billionaire? Like, you can totally see like the thought behind it. But if you have terrible execution, and I think the important part is that Instagram is a fun app that everybody uses. It becomes really fascinating when you know the name of the guy who developed it.
Yeah.
Facebook is huge and everybody uses it, but it's dramatic because of Mark Zuckerberg. It's I don't know. SpaceX is doing some amazing stuff, but there's a lot of scientific community people that are doing amazing stuff and shooting things into space. Why does it get more attention than anybody else? It's because of Elon Musk. It's because of the people involved. And I can.
Well, it's almost like, it's like, again, when you're watching some of those reality TV shows, you look at it and go, this person's on the show because of who they are.
Yeah.
Not like, they care just as much about the personality as, if not more, than how they'll actually fare in the competition. Like for Biggest Loser, for some of the stuff, you're like they're not the biggest person, but man, they're crazy. And that's going to be fun to watch. Yeah. How everyone else deals with this super selfish, crazy person who's just out to win it all at whatever cost it takes. Can Bob teach this person to do it for the right reason? I don't know, but I want to find out.
I remember you pointed out there was a show that it was like a Survivor meets what was that TV show? They went on a 2-hour cruise. Gilligan's Island. It was like Survivor meets Gilligan's Island. It was the most ridiculous premise, but all of like the group were people composed of the different character archetypes, and they literally brought a rich dude and his wife. They brought they had a couple of like the young pixies. They had like scientists. They went and got the real people and brought them to the island and had them do these competitions, and it ended up being the rich guy that was sort of the villain of the show ended up winning. And he pointed out the fact that it was like he won because he's this super aggressive rich guy who will win at any cost. This is how he lives his life, and he just, it's how he got rich, and this is how he won the show. And it's really funny because it's produced like any other show. There's a bunch of human drama and everything, and they left the end competition to the very end because the wrong person won. They're like, they wanted like a come from behind victory, and like, nope, the super predictable jerk won. Never mind. Let's move on to the next show episode. But that's because they understood. It's like, nobody wants this. Let's just move on. And I don't know. You need good producers. Hire someone from The Bachelorette. This is not a good first step, Apple.
It's very. It comes off as amateur, but they had way too much money to spend on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, you should have done just a super cheap pilot and just prove out the concept. Because if you can make it sound interesting with no names and just random people, then when you add some star power, like, okay, I'm in. But I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. And there's some people, whatever.
Just funny, man. Just funny.
Messed it up.
Oh, well. The other thing that they announced, not on the keynote, but later in the week, and you and I care about this.
Yes.
Major podcast updates.
Yeah.
What? So right now, if you want to know how many listeners you have, tough luck. Well, that's not totally true. You can figure out how many downloads you had of your file, both partial and complete downloads.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
If you're like on us, where we host our podcast on AWS, you can then get into the logs, and you can use a third-party service that will parse out the logs and then tell you what your listener, what your downloads are, and you just kind of infer downloads equals listeners. It's kind of how that works. Obviously not always true, like on me on my podcast app. I've got a set where I download them,
Yeah,
because I just want to listen to them. That would count as a listen-in, even though I would say for some of them, I probably delete half the shows because I just don't, for whatever reason, that week's topic I don't care about. Like I got a real estate one where there's some where they're like, here's a guy who flips houses and he's done it 50,000 times this year. I'm like, whatever, I don't flip houses. Delete. But it would count as a listen as far as that podcast is concerned. So anyways, Apple's rolling out. That's always been kind of this like, oh, it's super lame. We don't know anything about it, which is consternation for podcast producers and for advertisers. Because I've got other podcasts where the second an ad comes up, dude, skip.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like, there's that one radio show that we both listen to, A&G. It always starts off with a 1 minute ad. You want to know how I know that? Because you hit the fast forward button 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4.
See, what kills me about it, James, is that it's actually a 50-second ad with a 10-second bumper of music, but sometimes it's only a 7-second bumper of music. That drives me crazy. Because if you're really on top of it, or if you're like a second or two late, you miss the first beginning of the sentence. You're like, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Exactly. So Apple's going to help with some of that stuff-ish. I think for some it will hurt. For most it will help. It's probably, how do I say it? There will probably be a lot of pain at first. Yeah. And then it will ultimately lead to something better. So it's getting an overhaul. So it's got new interfaces. And the big thing is that they're just going to give you more information. They're going to add an extension so that you'll be able to say, is this just an episode teaser? Is it a full episode or bonus content? Which would be nice instead of just here's the feed of everything that's going on. And so you as a listener could say, I just want full episodes. Or you can even say, like, is this I don't want to say it, like, is this a season where they should really start it in chronological order, start at the first episode? Or is it more like ours, which is more timely, where it's like, you could listen to the most recent and you're fine. And you'll be able to specify that as well. And most importantly, you'll be able to get listener data in the podcast. So it's not a binary, did they download it, yes or no?
Ooh.
It's, did they skip anything?
How
much of it did they actually listen to before they got stopped? I don't totally know how that's going to work, but somehow Apple's going to make those analytics available to people who listen via iTunes. So in episode analytics, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, because podcasts they're a thing. People listen to them.
They're still, and they're still quite the Wild West because they're so, it's so opaque, the analytics of it, but it's, but they're becoming as big a deal as a lot of different forms of content consumption. So it's,
but you're going to see, I think you're going to see a lot of apps who go like, oh, really?
Yeah.
And a lot of podcasts, and you'll see a bunch who are like, ooh, really? And and you're going to find, I think this is that it's this weird, it's another attack on advertising in a way. Attack's too strong of a word, but this idea of advertisers are going to learn a lot more about what's being listened to and what's not. And the producers, the creators, and the advertisers themselves, they're going to learn, you know what? I need to make this ad better somehow. Yeah. I feel like from what I understand on like YouTube, like the pre-rolls and post-rolls, like they're okay. But where a lot of YouTube creators make all their money is in like the video is an ad, essentially. Like today I am reviewing the Craftsman tool set.
Right.
Here's what it has. It has these pieces. This is what I really like about it. Here's what I don't like about it. Or it's all the building guys, they all have them where it's like, today we'll be building this desk that you can get from this kit that you can buy right here. And then they show you how to make whatever that kit is that you can buy. And that's totally a sponsored content. That's the official term for it. I think you'll see a lot more of that in like podcasts where it's like, for example, I don't know, maybe Apple wants to sponsor some of our content. They would give us a new iMac Pro, and maybe not after your little review, but me. And then we could give a review that would be a sponsored content where they're paying us to talk about it. And there's no ad necessarily. It is in and of itself. I think you'll see more of that come to podcasts because that's how it works right now with like YouTube. It'll just become a lot more like YouTube. Yeah. Which, you know what? I like YouTube. So it's okay.
Yeah, I don't hate that. So.
Or you'll just learn to make variable sized ads, right? Yeah. You'll get lazy and do a minute because, oh man, I got you. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're like, nope, sometimes they're 15 seconds. Sometimes they're 2 minutes. Who does that? It's Tim Ferriss. Oh my gosh, he's the worst. Because he has like 3 ads just right out the gate, right up front. And he's just talking about it. He kind of just goes until he feels like, all right, I've said what I wanted to say about it. But where it gets him is you can clearly tell that he records those at different times than he does his normal podcast. It's like his intro. He does his intros like right before he goes to bed or something because he always sounds like he's just like ready to go to sleep. And whereas his dad's like he's brooky and whatever, and you can tell he's awake and thinking about it. And so I'm always like next, just listening for the inflection change. And then once I hear the inflection change, you go back one, and then you're good to go and you actually hit the intro.
That's really funny.
But his are always like, they're like 5 minutes in sometimes. We're like, whoa, damn. It's good, man. Just, it's okay. You don't have to tell me that hard on it. I'm not going to listen anyways. But anyways, it'll be interesting. I think it'll be good. More information, more transparency. usually good. No, it's good because it'll help legitimize it because you'll be able to say, no, people actually listen to this. And so for the ads that are listened to, I think they'll garner higher revenue per ad. They'll just have less. You know what I mean? You know.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. Cool, man. That's it for
that
Apple.
was Apple.
I know.
Holy cow, we're up against the clock. All right.
I know.
That happened.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. IBM announces that they have successfully started building a pilot of their 5 nanometer transistor process, which is big news if you're into Moore's law. And significantly, the technology that they've used to do this is going to allow them to get down to 3 nanometers. So we've got at least 2 more steps of the transistors quadrupling the exponential growth, which is a pretty big deal. It's just going to take a while to get there. And then 1 nanometer might be, it is the physical limit as far as anybody can tell. And of what we think a transistor can be made out of. Because you're down to like at 1 nanometer, you're down to 5 silicon atoms per transistor, which is not very many. Yeah. But yeah. So Moore's law keeps on ticking for a little bit, which is nice. But
it's very nice. And then my story, can't say it really quick, but essentially, I will try. So Airbnb, as you know, rent out your house. It turns out they figured out the same thing that Microsoft figured out years ago, where it's easy to sell one really big contract than to sell a bunch of really small contracts. And so a lot of their listings, they're turning to more professionally managed places like hotels and things like that. And there's potential that they're running into an identity crisis as a result. Because what you find is like, you can sign up one big guy who's got like 1,000 listings, and you're like, boom, we just added 1,000 listings to this area, and that bumps up the numbers a lot, and it's great. But again, it's like, what do you do if you go to Airbnb for your first time and you get a hotel, and then your second time you get some dude's house? Like the expectations for service could be very different.
Yeah.
I don't think there's confusion there, but it could be. But then the article also went into, and we'll have this on the website, furlobros.com, where it just talks about how there are some people who are taking advantage of the change. So like, for example, in Portland, you can get literally like 2 to 3 times the amount of rent for a short-term rental on Airbnb versus a long-term rental. And so there'll be people who they get a bunch of long-term rentals and then immediately flip them onto Airbnb and make all the money back plus some, which are like, that's a gray area because it probably says on the rental lease you shouldn't do that.
Right.
Not only are you subleasing, but you're running a business, and it may even be illegal in the city you're doing it in. But there you get someone who's like, dude, I'm going to rent this thing for $1,000 a month, and I'm going to charge $200 a night, and I'm going to fill this up every single weekend. Like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
Yeah, for 2-night minimum, that kind of thing. That could work. And they're literally just like, yeah, I just have 8 or 10 of them, and that's what I do. I manage those, which I'm like, that's kind of a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of that? I want to buy these things. You don't have to buy them. Anyways, it's interesting. Going through a potential identity crisis. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Train. All right.
I think it's it, man.
That's the show. That's awesome. Thank you, everybody, for listening to episode 298. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget, you can check out all the show notes with all the links at furlobros.com. Again, that's episode 298. If you'd like to get the show notes sent directly to you, you can sign up on that same page on the right-hand side. Then finally, this podcast is supported by listeners just like you. If you'd also like to contribute, we have 4 different levels. And if you've made it this far in the podcast, we want to let you know that we will be taking a break after episode 300. So next week, we'll be in Canada for $2.99, and then we'll do 300. It'll be awesome. And then Matthew and I are going to be taking a little bit of a break, about 3 months-ish. But we'll let you know more when that actually comes. But since you made it this far, we thought we'd give you a little bit of a heads up. So 300 is exciting. We keep approaching it, and we're looking forward to it. All right, let's see here. I am James Furlo, and I totally forgot Oh yeah, it was my stately brother is Matthew Furlo, and so we will talk next time.